Hi, and welcome to another episode of Makin'Things. Today, I'll be showing you how to make a bad piggies piniata.
Right.
Need a balloon, which I'm currently missing, a container in which to mix equal parts flour and water. I recommend only making a little bit at a time, just so you don't have a giant mess. Some newspaper for the main structure, some tissue paper for the color, as well as maybe some just plain white paper to draw the eyes and mouth on if you want, and some scissors. When it comes to the newspaper and the tissue paper, you're going to want to rip it up into strips a few inches across is good. The bigger they are, the more creases you're going to have, but also the easier it's going to be for you. When you're soaking them, you really want it to be properly soaked through, but then you just run it through your fingers to remove all of the excess before putting it onto the papier-mâché structure. So what I've actually done here is I've put the unfinished piñata on a string right up in front of the fireplace so that it can dry more evenly, because there's no surface touching a table or anything of the sort, but also because there's extra heat coming from the hot air coming out. So as you can see, leaving a gap was actually pretty important, because as the concoction dries, the paper shrinks, and it put a lot of pressure on the balloon. It's actually starting to come out this way, so if it was completely closed, you'd probably end up with a tear somewhere. The next step is to put a rope harness between the first layer and the next layers. The first step on that is just to make a slip knot, so it's just a simple knot around the rest. We're going to trim the excess later. And there you go. The other thing we're going to do is put up what's going to become the nose, which is this little rice pudding cup. So we're just going to put a few dabs of glue. Again, it's going to be the paper that's going to be holding it, but we're going to put about where we want the middle of the face to be. So you just want to cover the edge of the container, not go too far up right now because you don't want to push it off. It's only slightly being held in place, but just the wet newspaper is going to be enough to really help hold it in. So now we've got the rope covered, and we also left the nose uncovered so that there's not too much weight pulling down on it. The next layer is going to cover up the nose properly. Right now this is just going to reinforce the structure. So in order to ensure that the ears don't flap around, what we're going to do is we're actually going to take 2 squares of our tissue paper, put them face to face, and fold the edges out in opposing directions, so that what we end up with is it's not going to fall one way or another when we apply it to the bad piggy. And just to make them hold together, to make my life a little bit easier, I put a dab of glue in the center. The tail is going to be a pipe cleaner. I bent it in half because it was a bit too long. Just twist it 3 times around your finger. Pull it out a bit. And we have a swirly tail. So before we start covering it up with the color, we're going to fill it up with the surprises for the kids. 1 egg per kid with little gifts inside. So in order to apply the colored sheets, just because they're so thin and they're probably going to tear if we put too much pressure on them, we're actually going to put the mixture of flour and water on the piñata, kind of as just as an adhesive on the surface rather than soaking the paper with it. It's thin enough that it's going to absorb what it needs from the surface. And there it is. The Bad Piggies Piñata is complete. I did have to remove the ears and put them back on a little bit later just because they were flapping over and I didn't want them to stick to the body. But that was just a matter of waiting a little bit and just putting them back on later. If you like this, if you thought this was cool, you want like my projects, please subscribe. Leave your comments. If you want more details, you can always visit my Instructables blog. Have a good day.